Russia unleashed its second major attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure this month on Thursday, November 28th. The result was a sudden power cut for more than 1,000 people inhabiting the western, southern, and central regions of the country. Vladimir Putin stated that Moscow adopted such measures in response to Ukraine's attacks on Russian territory, with medium-range Atachan missiles coming from the United States. Putin also said Russia's future targets could even include a decision-making center in Kiev. Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, reacted by accusing the Russians of committing a despicable escalation. According to the leader of Ukraine, Russian forces used cruise missiles with cluster munitions. The attack brought what Kyiv's leaders feared most: long power cuts during the winter. The season on the Ukrainian territory is extremely cold and reaches temperatures around zero throughout the territory. Therefore, energy is essential during winter for the population to stay warm. However, with the Russian attack, this will not be possible for many people. Ukrainian officials said it was the 11th major attack on the energy system since March. Russia knocked out about half of available generation capacity in Ukraine over the course of the war. In addition, it damaged the distribution system and forced authorities to impose long blackouts. The Ukrainian military reported 91 missiles and 97 drones in this Thursday's attack. The Air Force shot down only 79 missiles and 35 drones. The remaining 62 drones were likely affected by electronic warfare. An energy sector source said Ukraine had disconnected several nuclear power units from the grid during the Russian attack. More than half of Ukraine's electricity comes from nuclear-type plants. According to authorities, all missiles and drones aimed at Kyiv have been shot down. The Russian attack was the fulfillment of a promise. The Russian military has promised a response to American missile attacks carried out by Ukrainian military forces in November. One of the targets was the installation in the border region of Kusky, which has been occupied since August. The bombers reportedly wounded 2 Russian soldiers. "We carried out a comprehensive attack," Putin said during a visit to Kazakhstan on Thursday. "It was a response to the continuous attacks on our territory by Atachan's missiles. Therefore, the blows really were against attacks from the point of view of Vladimir and his troops." Ukraine's use of weapons from the United Kingdom and the United States to attack Russian territory began only last week. It was the first time this has happened since the large-scale invasion in February 2022, with Russian attacks in retaliation. Explosions were reported in several cities, including Odessa, Kharkiv, and Lutsky. Kiev's military administration said the attack lasted almost 9.5 hours. At least 12 areas in Ukraine, including 3 western regions, were hit, and Energy Minister Herman Haushenko said emergency power cuts had been introduced. "Our energy system is the target," Zelensky said on Telegram. These cluster munitions make it significantly more difficult for our first responders and energy workers to liquidate the impact of attacks, he added. Cluster munitions, called cluster munitions, are explosive devices that, when triggered, release a certain amount of smaller sub-munitions for the purpose of eliminating personnel, artillery, or vehicles within a large area. The mayor of Kharkiv, Igor Telekov, said there had been shelling in a civilian area of the city. The mayor of Lutsk and Roar, Polichok, said several explosions were heard, and that electricity was cut in parts of the city. Polakuk said that trolley buses, those buses powered by electric cables from Lutsk, stopped the head of the administration of Revan, or Alexandro Rekoval. He said electricity supply had been cut off to more than 280,000 people in the western region. In the Lviv region, about 523,000 homes and businesses are without electricity, according to Regional Chief Maxim Kozitsky. Ukrainian authorities responded by implementing emergency power cuts, preventive measures to minimize harmful overloads to the country's electrical grid. Temperatures are dropping and the country has already experienced its first snowfall. Fortunately, the full force of Ukraine's harsh winter has not yet been felt. If Russia continues with these nationwide attacks on Ukraine's energy system, the country will face extremely challenging months ahead. Earlier this month, Ukraine's largest private energy company, DTEK, said its thermal power plants suffered significant damage. This was the 8th large-scale attack on Ukraine's energy facilities this year, DTEK said in a statement. She added that its plants have been attacked more than 190 times since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In February 2022, having already endured 2.5 harsh winters since that invasion, Ukrainians have been preparing for another since Sunday night. Russia has carried out around 1,500 attacks on Ukraine following a week of escalation in the war, which also saw Ukraine fire American and British missiles at Russia for the first time. Last Wednesday, Ukraine launched UK-supplied Storm Shadow missiles at targets in Russia's Kursk region. In response, Russia deployed a new type of missile, the Orekhnik, to hit the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. On Wednesday, Russia warned the United States to stop what Putin's allies called an escalation spiral over Ukraine. Nevertheless, Moscow officials indicated they would keep updating Washington on test missile launches, according to Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov. They sent a signal that Moscow wants to keep communication channels open at a time of tensions with the United States. Last week, the Kremlin approved a new policy that lowered its limit on the use of nuclear weapons. Ryabkov and his comments came 6 days after the release of Orekhnik. The missile is innovative, as it is a new type of intermediate-range ballistic and personalized missile. The Russian spokesman said the launch was a clear message to the West. The sign is very clear and obvious. Stop. You should not do this anymore. You should not provide. Here is all they want. Do not encourage them to new military adventures. They're very dangerous, said Habakov, referring to Biden and the United States. The current U.S. administration must stop this spiral of escalation, he added. They simply must. Otherwise, the situation will become too dangerous for everyone, including the United States itself, Ryabkov said. The statements showed that the Orekhnik was fired in response to Ukraine's use of North American ballistic missiles, the ATACMS, and British Storm Shadow cruise missiles. As we mentioned, Zelensky said that the use of Orekhnik amounted to a clear and severe escalation of the conflict, and that it should be considered worldwide. Kiev said the missile exceeded 13,500 kilometers per hour. Washington has said the weapons are experimental, and Putin is unlikely to have many others at his disposal. The Kremlin said it had no obligation to warn the United States about the Orekhnik, as the missile does not have an intercontinental range. Even so, the White House received a 30-minute warning before the launch. About this, Ryabkov also commented, I am confident you understand that this has been a pivotal factor in the very dangerous situation we currently find ourselves in. The Russian hopes that such actions will reduce the risks of calculation and dangerous mistakes, although it is difficult to imagine what he is probably referring to. We are committed to this practice and hope that the United States is also committed, Kyabkov said. The warnings are to prevent further U.S. action in the conflict. Also this Wednesday, the state news agency Rosatas quoted an official as saying that Moscow has another card up its sleeve. This is the Sarmad intercontinental ballistic missile. The weapon, which is part of Russia's strategic nuclear arsenal, can be put into combat service. The Sarmat is designed to deliver nuclear warheads to targets thousands of kilometers away. The United States and Europe are potential targets. However, Sarmat's development has been hampered by delays and setbacks in its testing. Experts shared news about this in September. Apparently, Moscow suffered a gigantic failure in the latest missile test. The error even caused a large and deep crater to appear in the Sarmat launch silo. Ukraine remains in bad shape, and the lack of power is likely to harm the lives of many local residents. Furthermore, there is always the fear of an escalation of the conflict, as the United States and Europe are heavily involved. They infuriate Russia. What do you think of these conflicts? What are your expectations? Please leave your thoughts in the comments. We will return at any moment with urgent news updates. Thank you for your company, always so valued. See you in the next video.